Hi guys, heads up. I don't know what's going on with my phone. I tried to do this little intro first and the screen went black and then my camera stopped and my phone's not full by any long stretch. So anyway, just to let you guys know, this is the actual question and answer portion. The live feed probably by the time you see this is already well done. So what I'm going to do is right after this, I am going to do a live feed doing the actual announcement, and I'm going to edit this together. It's just going to take too long. So, all right, guys, this is the actual question and answer section. Well, guys, like I said in the update, I do have a headache. It's getting better. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through all 96 questions that are on here. So this isn't, I didn't want to do this via live feed because I didn't feel like I'd be focused because I did take some migraine medicine. I've got the computer up here. What I've got is the actual questions. So, well, let me see what I've got here waiting for review. Held for spam. I was just making sure I didn't miss any. So let's go through these comments on this channel, on this video. Wait, I gotta go back. Okay, here we go. No, I don't want to actually watch the video. I just want to go through the comments. So first is Birdshot, because I'm going through them. The last question's always going to be the one on top. I believe that's how this works. So let's see here. Birdshot says, besides Ferrum Forge, who is my favorite knife maker right now? I'm not gonna lie to you. Some of the stuff that Dave Deng has coming out from Reate, I gotta say that those are some of my favorite. As far as U.S. knife makers, ZT makes really good knives. But you know, if you're talking about quality for the price, you got to talk about Mora knives. I think that right there, Mora knives. Not trying to get off the subject, but Mora knives I think are the best value for a fixed blade knife that you could do just about anything you want, bushcraft scenario. So Cognis Thorn says, what does Nick Shabazz look like? Cognis, that's a question that you're gonna have to ask Bird, maybe Nick. I have no idea what Nick looks like. I know what he sounds like. I talk to him pretty regular. I haven't talked to him for a while. For that matter, I haven't talked to Bird for a few days either. My migraine medicine's starting to work, but my head doesn't hurt anymore, but I'm still scattered. Butthead 97. Favorite knife in my collection? That's a really hard one. So what I've got is the box of knives that is the important stuff. So I will show you what I think is my favorite knife in my collection. And it's going to be seen a couple times. Favorite knife in my collection are these two. It's a tie, because they're both gifts from my father. It's a little Barlow Scrimshaw. Because I was in the Navy, he got this for me. This didn't get near as much carry time as this. My father got this for me when I was younger than my daughter. I think I was 5 or 6 when he got this for me. And as you can see, it has been carried extensively. So there are my two favorites. And for a specific reason. They were gifts from my father. Okay, let's see. What's the next one? So Phil D asks, when you worked in weapons maintenance, what's the funniest, well shit, how am I going to fix that moment? There's one that is always funny, and that's when somebody puts a 50 cal machine gun together incorrectly and has the cocking lever upside down, or in the wrong position, and it jams. It has to go in a specific position, or you jam the gun up, and that's always fun to try and teach somebody to figure out. The best was we had a piece break in the upper gun system on a 5-inch gun system, the aft one. I can't remember really what it was, but it was part of the actuator system that moved the 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 round. It was like an elevator for the empty round to get into the in front of the ejection pawl that sent it out above the barrel. So it would extract into this, and then it would move up. Well, there was a piece in that broke, and it tore everything apart. It was just, and what broke was like a little split washer, split ring. We called them Jesus clips because you only ever get like 2 or 3 of them, and the first one breaks, the second one flies off the tool, and the third one you're like, Jesus, I need this one because you never have, or you're gonna have to make one. Favorite color? It's green or blue in that area. That was from S.J. Hoff. I'm going to have a hard time with some of these. Sam Hoffer. Hey, Sam. Sam's another one of my young subscribers that actually contacts me outside of just YouTube. He asked me Instagram comments. He sent me some text messages and things like that. My favorite steels are Elmax 20CV. They're up there as tied. Here's one in Elmax. This is one of my Microtechs in Elmax. I have 2 Microtechs in Elmax. I personally like Elmax a lot. 20CV, I like it because of its properties that allow it to hold that edge and get so ridiculous sharp. I make my knives out of 20CV. Oh, here's one of them. They come out great. This is a belt edge on a leather strop, and so we're talking 20 CV gets ridiculous sharp. Outside of 20 CV and Elmax, BG10, and I do like N690. I don't like a lot of the S series steels, but I'm starting to take a like to really starting to enjoy the S35VN that WE is using. So there's my favorite steels. Pip Corona asked, now that I have a Fortis, what is my next Grail knife? I still want a Grimsmo Norseman. I can't afford my hat's crooked or my head's crooked. A Grimsmo Norseman would be amazing. I would love one. The thing is that I get enough of them in for sharpening because they are difficult to sharpen. I get enough of them in for sharpening that the fact is I get my need to play around with a Fortis, or not with a Fortis, with a Grimsmo Norseman often enough that I kind of it kind of satiates that urge. I want one so bad. I got a Reich that came in from Dwayne Smotherman. He asked a question, and we'll talk about that later. His was amazing. That Rask, it just wasn't sharp. The last few Grimsmo Norsemans I've had come out were not sharp. So I'm probably a Norseman or a Ferrum Forge Master Blaster. I would love to have a Ferrum Forge Master Blaster. I just don't have the money for either one of those. So let's see. Doughboy 2-stroke. What's your worst cut? Well, I get stitches often enough that when I go over to Balboa, there's a lady that works in the emergency room that sees me and is like, "Is it time?" She knows me by name. She's giving me stitches. Most recent history, it's a toss-up. A couple years ago, I stood up under a piece of sheet metal and cut my back pretty bad, but it was pretty superficial. This one right here, I had to end up having emergency surgery that day to put a couple stitches in a tendon. That I think that's probably the worst. That's the worst one. That's the one that has required surgical repair. Usually it's just stitches. This one took a total of 13 stitches, and the worst part was I had to sit there calmly because I had gotten the head of orthopedic surgery to authorize me to do this with no anesthesia because I'm allergic to the anesthetic. So they had to pry it open, verify that yes, I had hit the tendon, get it all washed out, lift the tendon so that they could suture the tendon and sleeve with extremely small sutures. Then all the underlying, so I had 3 or 4 in the tendon, tiny. Then the material underneath, I had 5, and I had 4 more on the surface, and that really sucked. I threw up twice because not so much the stitching doesn't hurt. Stitches feel like bee stings. You know, after 4 or 5 of them, it starts to get annoying. But you know, the stuff deep down inside, not a lot of muscle tissue, not a lot of nerve tissue. I mean, the surface, what it was the prying it open and just prying and cleaning and moving stuff around. That was bad. That was bad. I was at the emergency room like 2 hours, and then went up to orthopedic surgery for another 2. It was like 4 hours to get that thing put back together. Motorhead, Power Stroke, Cummins, or Duramax. My dad was a Cummins diesel technician for 20 years, so I'm going to have to go with Cummins, because my father told me years ago, with a Cummins diesel engine and proper transmission, you can hitch up and pull the fucking world. So that's where I stand on that one. Top 5 EDC knives. My top 5 EDC knives. Well, I got a box out here. My top 5, we'll go through that. I should have read some of these questions a little closely. 2, 3, 4, 5. So, top 5 EDC knives. It's not gonna be this. This is not a real good purpose knife. So, in no particular order, my Ferrum Forge NTAC that I recently re-anodized and cut a sharpening notch in myself. I went with gold anodizing on the hardware and blue. This one gets a lot of time. I actually am the one that replaced the stop pin. I had a little bit of blade play. I did the oversized stop pin. Elliot supervised, but Elliot showed me how to put that in and clean it up. So my NTAC, one of my all-time favorite knives. This one gets a lot of carry. It is my Fortis. It's been a grail for a long time. My friend Nico bought this for me, so that's 2. My Archbishop has got to be... This gets more pocket time than any knife. And it's not that it's any better of a knife. It's just, it's so much... Everything about this is comfortable. It's like it was made for my hand. Exactly the way I would want a knife to feel. Everything about it. It's just sometimes... This is an extremely nice knife, and I don't know, there's things I just don't want to carry it to do, depending on where I'm going. Sebenza. Sebenza's always a good option for everyday carry. Mine gets used a lot. As a matter of fact, this is probably going to need sharpened soon. I did a lot of cutting with this. This gets a lot of hard work use, and the blade has held up extremely well to a lot of the abrasive wear that I give it. And finally, number 5, I would have to say this gets carried in my hip pocket. So much there's holes in some of my pockets. And just for you, Luke, it is a Wharncliffe. He's giving me shit because I have an accent. I do have I got a country boy accent. And when I say Wharncliffe, I say Wharncliffe because it's just my pronunciation. So he sent me a text and it was like, Wharncliffe. Say it with me. And so I went through it, but it was, he did, you know, Cliffe. So I was tempted to mess around with Luke and go, all right, Wharncliffe. It's a Wharncliffe. So that's now. Really, really awesome work knife. Very small. And the thing about this one is, if you're going somewhere where you don't want to have something big and, you know, to a lot of people, that is very, very off-putting and puts them on edge because that's a big knife. Same with this. That just looks aggressive. So for situations like that, these two usually wind up getting the most pocket carry. Places where I'm going to go where I know I want a knife, but I don't necessarily, you know, I don't need tactical anymore. That's not me anymore. Definitely not this. People will shit themselves. All right, so that's my top 5. Man, your question took a while there, Knife Addict. I gotta put some of this stuff back away. My wife will come home and shit. I do have, my friend Matt and I talk about it. There's a good chance I'm on the autism spectrum because if my knife case is out of order, I flip out because I look down and I'm like, oh, where's that at? One of them is with Bird. You would see that. one of my favorite. Anyway, so Mike, what has been your favorite time experience dealing with a customer? To tell you the truth, I've only ever had like a couple bad. I've only had a couple bad interactions with customers. 99% of the time, they've been awesome. So, I do have to say, and I don't want to sound like, because it's Ben, young Ben, who's going to ask a question on here a little bit later. I know he's on here because I see his screen name on here because I remember writing it down. Dealing with Ben was awesome, and the fact is that Ben emails me and texts me. He texts me pretty regular, and I don't get around to texting him back as often as I should, because it's not a customer relation thing. It's more like an interpersonal thing where he'll send me pictures of things he's done. He's an amazing kid, and having him, even if it was a one-time customer, because he's gotten to where he sharpens his stuff really well, it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool, really cool interaction, actually. Ken Robinson. Well, Ken, are you on here? Ken Robson, if you're not on here, I'll add that one in, because that's not really a question, but yeah, I'll put you on here. You go at the bottom. You're number 97. See, because I like all of you guys, even though I know that I said ask a question. June Song, thoughts on Evan Knife and Tool companions, also in 20 CV. I've never, you guys, like I've said in other videos, I don't look at stuff. I try not to look at stuff on the internet, because unless I've had it in hand, I don't want to do a judgment. I'm not ever going, you're never going to see me do a review of something that's on the internet, unless I'm just looking at the cat. I might do that. Bird has done it before. I want to look at some of the new catalogs and just the designs, but you won't see me do a review video of anything or mention anything unless I've had it in hand. I have a Shirogorov. I used to own one. This is an old one. I have one here that I'm going to do a video about probably, because they're awesome knives. They really are. It's just not any more, I don't see them as being better than some of the priced knives that are lower tier, not as expensive. Michael Mooney. Now, let me see here. These do not appear to be in order. No, they are. Is Michael Mooney on here twice? Some of you guys ask questions twice, and I have to verify. I just want to make sure that I'm not... I remember writing that down. Okay, anyway. What's the most difficult sharpening job you've ever done? Most difficult? As far as, like, since I just started doing knife sharpening, I had a Lou Paul bluefin that was from a young man that came to me, and it was a nightmare. It was a convex S30V Scandi, and it was only done, this guy had only done the edge on that knife down to about, probably at the most, 120 grit. It was really coarse. It was really hard to fix. Luis Tristan asks, are you going to expand your knife selection in the future? Now, I'm not sure which way you're asking. Are you asking the knives I make or knives that I own? Because right now, I financially cannot expand my knife selection. I have other knives that I want to get designed and start making. It's just, you guys have been sending me enough sharpening stuff that I haven't even been up to the shop yet this week to do knife making. So, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out. James G, what's your take on diamond plates? Wow, we're not very far into this. My take on diamond plates, they have their purpose. I have one that I use for reprofiling. I don't necessarily like the edge that I get with diamond stones, and I don't like how they wind up lasting. I am thinking about, there are some plates out there now that are called sintered diamond plates, or sintered diamond stones. And apparently they don't cut as aggressively as like a DMT, but they hold up better, and there's constantly exposing new material, new diamond abrasive. And I may give those a try, depending on how much they cost. Bikes and blades. Hey Mike, what type of abrasive compound are you using on your leather grinder belt to polish the edge bevels on your knives? The finish you showed recently looked pretty nice, especially for a nice knife like steel like 20 CV. I have worked with quite a bit of vanadium tool steels and haven't really been happy with the efficiency of the buffing compounds I have tried. I used some stuff that Chris and Elliot just happened to have, that's called Black Magic. They use it on their buffing wheel, and it did a really good job. Because I don't have enough chromium oxide, that's the finish I got. It's a little cloudy in a couple places. You can still see some of the lines, but that's what I got on this with, and immediately dropped it and knocked a chip out of this. Dropped it right on a piece of metal from about chest high. At any rate, it was called Black Magic. They bought like a big, huge brick of it, and I just put that on the belt. Doc Nick, is it possible to strop out a rolled edge, or do you have to take it out with coarser stones? Thanks. A rolled edge, typically you are going to have to hone it. Stropping will work well. I've had people tell me, I was like, oh, I don't know why you need to sharpen, just keep stropping. And I was like, if you did the things to your knives that I do to mine, you can't get away from having to sharpen. Eventually your knives are going to be dull and you're going to have to sharpen them. And a rolled edge is one of those things that you just pretty much have to do. It's a lot easier to handle on something softer and better. You might be able to get away with a little bit, but I mean, you're going to have to really, really strop it. What got you into sharpening knives? Don't get me in. I'm from Canada anyway. I just wanted to ask my question. Okay, so Dominic, I will take you out of the running. If 18 comes up, I didn't read the questions. I told you I was taking migraine medicine. What got me into sharpening? I grew up on a farm, and we always would butcher, and we had to learn how to sharpen. I grew up in the outdoors. You had to have a sharp knife. I watched my grandfather do it on a little slipstone he carried around in his pocket inside a leather. Slipstone's a small stone you put inside your pocket in a leather slip. And it just kind of went from there. I've always seen the value of having a very good sharp knife. So that's where it came from. That's what got me into it. And then I realized that I enjoyed it, and it was something cool, and I wanted to see how far I could take it, how sharp I could get things. And I tried to learn about what is actually sharp, and you know, different people have different I've handed people a knife that to me is dull because the edge is really coarse. You can see some fault, and they're, oh man, that knife is sharp. And it's because of their metrics for feeling if a knife is sharp is to run their thumb across here, and I'm like, oh wow, it's really sharp. Well, no, it's really chipped, and it feels coarse on your finger. So I forgot it's a liner lock, not a axis lock. So Kyle Phillips, is it possible to strop a knife too much? Yes, it is. It truly is, depending on, well, it is and it isn't. It depends on the compound you're using. I use a diamond compound that basically, if my knife's a little dull and I bring it back up, I'm still cutting. If you're using something softer like the white compound, the green compounds, red jeweler's rouge, you're not cutting as much as burnishing, and eventually you'll have a really polished knife, but it won't be as sharp as you want it. It slowly will as time goes on, you're not maintaining that sharp micro serration structure, what you're doing is you're smoothing it over, to the point where it just doesn't want to really cut anymore. It's really polished. It may still be apexed, but it just feels slippery and it's not sharp and it doesn't want to cut as much. EDC with Aaron. What is your favorite handle and blade materials? And do you ever sharpen convex knives like Bark River knives? If so, describe your process. Aaron, I have a video that shows, I've done videos, every one of my videos shows how I do my convex. It's a matter of I hold the stone, a small stone on one hand, the edge of the knife on the other, and I move them together in it's a movement that I just don't even think about anymore. And so you wind up with that convex from the origin of the edge bevel all the way up. This one I have not sharpened yet, but all of my knives, all knives that leave my house are going to have a convex unless you specifically ask for a specific angle, and then I have to break out the Edge Pro and the angle block, and I have to charge more because that takes, for me, way longer. But yes, I have sharpened full convex knives. Like I did a Bark River for a guy not too long ago in Ryan in Florida, a guy who bought a couple of my knives after I made them. So that's, somebody asked a question and I don't have my ring on me. But that's my process. So favorite handle and blade materials. I really don't like any handle materials. They're messy. I hate making handles, if you're talking about that. My favorite handle material in a knife, by far, if you were to go through my case, is titanium. Titanium, and I like carbon fiber too. I like knives in carbon fiber that I don't have to make the handles for. So, give me just a second. Right, I'm still here. I forgot something. Because I knew this was going to be a question. So, the next question involves my wedding ring that I took off yesterday and left in the box. So next question. EN510. Why is there a slit in the bottom of my ring? 1, that's amazingly observant. 2, why are you that observant? 3, there's a slit in there because when I bought this, there was a diamond that sat in a press fitting. You can still see the little slots where the diamond used to sit. That one's full of gunk. There was a diamond that sat in there, and within a week of buying this diamond, this wedding ring diamond, it wasn't that expensive. I managed to pop that open enough that the diamond fell out, and so that's why it was manufactured that way. So I anodize it. It's a titanium band. I anodize it. Different colors, different times. Right now it's got the patinaed finish that I like. It's also on the patina copper, where you have bronze and green together, and it just looks like copper that has been aged. So that's why there's a slit in my wedding ring. John Chaplick. If I could pick one knife to keep in my pocket forever, what would it be? Now, if I had to say that I had one knife, only one knife that I would ever have in my pocket ever again, it's going to have to be this one. I carried this knife to 16% of the countries in the world. I carried it every day, pretty much the entire time I was in the military. It still gets a lot of carry time. It fits in a watch pocket real well. As a matter of fact, it has been carried so much that it is no longer near as big of a knife as it used to be, and I've had to thin the edge out significantly, Murray Carter style, to make this a usable tool. This one. As far as a utilitarian purpose, a knife that I would say I could only pick one knife for the rest of my life. Maybe the Rat 1. Rat 1 or maybe a Rat 2. This is almost too big sometimes. I like the Rat 1. I always have. But I'm thinking that a Rat 2 in D2 like this would be something that would be not too heavy, not too big, pretty much utilitarian. And I mean, if I was able to replace it, then they're not that expensive. Would you rather be a knife sharper for a company who only uses Rex 21? This is from Seth Balderson. Or only be allowed to carry a Reich Hummingbird for the rest of your life? I definitely would work for a company that only makes Rex 121 knives. Because I would not be able to make it only carrying a Reich Hummingbird. It's a beautiful, beautiful knife. But I just got an email about this. Well, maybe that is going to go away. Polar Weiss asked, well, now we have to go up here and see. I have to make sure this isn't a duplicate question. What's the worst you've ever cut yourself? So I'm answering the same question. It looks like I'm probably going to answer the same question. Sorry guys, I'm making sure that, okay, yeah, so I just want to make sure that I'm not entering people twice. So, Polar Weiss, I already answered that. It was my thumb. There's a video about this, and there's images of it. If you're squeamish, then. So, Tech and Rec asked the next question. He says, hey, what's going on, Mike? I was wondering what's your best way to sharpen a convex edge is. I always end up putting on some sort of V-grind. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Even when I sharpen a convex, I'm only doing the very front a lot of times, and I marry that edge in. It will look as though there's a second, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to just remove some material and then match back into that bevel, and I thin that out a little bit without, you know, a lot of times you can do it at the very front and then just marry my convex. It just winds up being a little bit wider. Like, so on this knife, you can see the edge bevel. This is the giveaway. It is sharp. You can see the edge bevel. It would be significantly wider. It'd be about to here. And then I just roll that in and I marry the shoulder in, because to just get at the very edge on front, you're not taking that much material off, you're thickening it. Now, if you're doing it a bunch of times, then yes, you really need to do the whole knife. But then again, the thing is, most people don't like that method because it's not as attractive. I'm not going to polish your knife back up on a belt or anything like that after I sharpen it. It's more work than I need to do. And what happens is, if I were to do the full convex, it'd be like the Murray Carter style, where I would just take these thumb studs off and just lay this flat. It does not look as attractive a lot of times to a customer. 12. So this is from Damon0530. So it says 12C27, yay or nay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I am going to pull this up because I'm not sure about that one. I don't know if it's something so I'm going to look it up, 12C27. 12, I should have done this ahead of time, but hey, C27. If I prepared for this, you would not, you wouldn't, it wouldn't be me and you guys would be all upset. So Sandvik steel, it is a Sandvik steel. I like all the Sandvik steels. It is, let's see here. It's, oh, okay, Outdoor Edge uses those. So it's a Sandvik steel. I've never had a problem with any of the Sandvik steels. They always seem to do really well. I'm trying to get better light on this than we had. Is that better? That seems like it. Okay. So, I'd say it's a yay. What's the first step that got you into the hobby of knives? Already told you, it's that knife my dad got me. So, it's not so much the knife that got me into the hobby of knives. It's more along the lines of my father. So, my father was a guy that, like, you'd see him and he'd empty out his pockets. He was like the original pocket dump. Like, you'd see it. He would empty out his pockets. He had a little 32 Derringer that he carried over and under. Derringer, he'd take that out of his pocket, and he had change, and he had keys, and he had tools, because he he had been a mechanic for years. He always had like a little screwdriver and shit in his pocket. He'd pull out, like, he had this little muskrat, this little yellow handled muskrat pocket knife that was both blades were the same, and it opened up from either end, and it had yellow handles. I loved that thing. He had a little Simmons lockback that he carried all the time, and he had a Swiss Army knife. So, I mean, the man would have 3 or 4 knives on him at any given time, and a handgun, and a flashlight sometimes in his hip pocket. And when he was a cop, he even carried more stuff, because then he had a fucking utility belt, basically, Batman. So he's like, oh, I can put this and this and this and this. So when he left being a mechanic, he actually was able to EDC much more gear. So that's what got me into it. It wasn't a specific knife, per se. It was my father's influence. And my father loved, like, I have a whole drawer full of fixed blade knives and things that I probably won't ever use now that I'm retired from the military, and I don't hunt because I can't. It hurts I can't fucking draw a bow anymore. I've had 3 shoulder surgeries. But knives were something my father and I always had in common. Even when we were not on the best of terms, it was something that we had together, and I still have it, and it's a love that he instilled in me. Hunting knives, fixed blade knives. My father has tubs of knives. He's passed away. He had them. They're at the house. They're all mine now. I've got more knives than I could even probably fucking count now, and all his guns. So that's what got me into knife collecting. Bob Clapper. Where are we at on here? Bob Clapper, we're on number 28. That's not bad, 35 minutes into it. How many knives in your collection, and what is your favorite? Okay, we already talked about what is not necessarily favorite, most important. How many knives in your collection? All right, well, I have this case that usually has anywhere between 15 to 20 knives in it that are my, you know, these are the high-end important, the things that mean something to me that I can lock up and things like that. Like this. Not that valuable to most people, but this was a gift for my father as well. This is another knife that was a Father's Day gift. That has nothing to do with the glowing review I gave it. It's just a nice knife. What is my favorite knife? That's a hard one to say. I love all of my knives, pretty much. But I do have a couple favorites. We can go ahead. I don't have a specific favorite, but yeah, we'll go with that. So this was the first Ferrum Forge knife I ever bought. It came out, and I picked it up at their shop the first time my daughter and I went up there, and I was like, I gotta have one of those. And so I got myself an NTAC because it is exactly what I would want. It's a robust blade. Some people think it's too thick. I don't think it, I mean, it's thick, but it's not that thick. For what I need something robust like that. This one has been a grail since the first time I saw one. And then my friend Nico bought it for me. The only thing I've done to it is I anodized the clip and the pivot screw. And then this. And this one's my favorite for a different reason, because this is the knife that I feel really brought it to light that Chinese companies weren't fucking around anymore. And David Deng brought knives to market, and he had made some really nice knives, but when he made the Horizon D, that's the one that really I went, wow. And I handled one, and I had to have one. And it was basically David Deng going out and saying, look what I've done. Custom, above custom quality, because a lot of custom knives are jacked. A custom or better quality at a price that you could get a Sebenza for. These were $400 when I bought it. I don't think they even make this knife anymore. These were $400 when I bought it. I love it because, oops, left-handed, can't flip left-handed. At $400, fucking amazing. There's stuff that's in this that is not in a $410 Sebenza. So there's that. There we go. Whew. What is my favorite production knife company? I can't say Ferrum Forge because they're not really production. They have some stuff that's coming out in production. Favorite production company? It's gonna have to either be, yes, you're gonna laugh when I say it. It's gonna be Cold Steel, because just judging by the number of their knives that I've owned and still own, it's not that their quality is so much better. Their designs, they come up with amazing designs all the time, and if you can shuffle through the bullshit that they design, the stuff that you're like, who the fuck, and you can get past those. Usually in their catalog, there's like 8 or 10 really, really, really nice design knives. One of my favorites, they had a traditional, like jig bone handled, folder, just an old school folder with pocket clip. And I was trying to get one of those for my dad. I thought that was an amazing design. They were gorgeous. And, the thing too is build quality. Cold Steel's awesome. They have some QC issues with sharpening and edge grinding and things like that, and I can rectify that. But that's where I have a problem with Cold Steel. So, kind of sounds different than what. Okay, Ace Heartless. Ace Heartless. What's your favorite flavor of Chuhai? So a Chuhai, for those of you who don't know, in Japan they take sochu, which is that stuff that you guys have seen me on live feeds drinking out of the paper milk carton. It's like vodka, and they mix that with flavored soda water. Usually not sweet. Usually just it is like lemon or lime. You can get they have some other ones, but lemon lime is usually just the base flavor. So what you wind up with is just soda water and lemon and Chuhai and ice, or on shochu and ice. So my favorite is just your traditional lemon lime. William Burke, in your experience, what's the difference between Elmax and Maximet? Well, Elmax is the difference. They're completely different recipes. Elmax is much softer, much easier to sharpen. It holds an edge pretty well if heat treated properly. Maximet is a high-speed cutting tool steel. So is Elmax, but there was a company that decided they wanted to get as close to tungsten carbide as they could, but still have it be resharpenable steel so they could have somebody sharpen bits. And what they came up with was Maximet, and Maximet is an extremely high wear resistant, high hardness steel that has got like 13% tungsten in it. So you wind up with a lot of tungsten carbides inside that steel that do a lot of the cutting, and it's just, from what I understand, it can be a nightmare to sharpen. So there's your big difference. They're completely different. I mean, to compare Elmax and Maximet is like trying to compare apples and oranges. They are different. I have never gotten to sharpen any Maximet yet, so I don't know. What is my favorite pistol? This is from Eric Johnson. What is your favorite pistol caliber for self-defense? Well, it's right here. 45 ACP hollow points. These are as close to a Black Talon as you're going to get. Basically, it's a Black Talon, been relabeled. And it is in my 5-shot magazine for my XDS. So coming to my house, this would probably be the first thing to see if you decide you're going to come in a window in the middle of the night, is you're going to look down that big hole in this small gun. And the other thing, this will sit in your pocket, in the back of your pants, the spine, in a holster, all night. And yes, I keep all my guns loaded, so yes, breaking into my house while I'm home is a bad idea. So 45 ACP is my favorite. Bob Schneider, which do you prefer, Kings Island or Cedar Point? Bob, you must be from Ohio. Cedar Point, just because that's where we always went as a kid. My mother would take us, my mother and father, regardless of how much we were hurting for money, my parents always found the money to take us to Cedar Point. After Cedar Point, after my sister and I got older, we used to go to SeaWorld every summer for a day. And when it got to the point that we kind of outgrew SeaWorld, we started going to Cedar Point. So they're both amusement parks in Ohio. And yes, there used to be a SeaWorld in Aurora, Ohio, right at Geauga Lake. Feather Chucker, do you think it's worth it to reprofile my BK9 edge to a more acute angle and still have the toughness? You know, it's up to what you're going to do with it. And I'm not real familiar with what the BK9 steel is on that. I'm not sure. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to give you an answer and then have you screw up your knife and then have it be not what you want. Big E, what is the one knife you cannot live without? And that would be that little silver knife that my father gave me. That's a quick and easy one. Billy Smith. Billy Smith, did you ask 2 questions? I'm trying to figure out where we're at here. Billy Smith, right there, 36. We are on question 36. What is my favorite beverage? To tell you the honest truth, milk is my favorite beverage. I just am careful not to drink as much of it. When I was younger, I would drink milk all the time, but I'm getting older and I don't need that many extra calories. I read something that said that 90% of the calories that people are consuming that are making them fat are in their beverages. And I don't really see it because I don't drink, except for beer, which I don't drink as much beer as everybody seems to think I do. There's not even any beer in the house. I drank the last beer last night. I have maybe 2 or 3 beers a week, except for Fridays when I do indulge up at the Forge. But milk, and we make what's called mugicha, which is barley tea. So there's no caffeine or anything in it. It's really good. It's usually people drink it in the summer in Japan, but we drink it year round because we're in San Diego. So it's just roasted barley in a tea bag, and you throw it in some boiling water, and then you put it in a refrigerator, and it's like having iced tea in a refrigerator. It's no different. What's my favorite knife handle material to work with? If wood, what type? Mine's been leopard wood. I don't like wood. Wood has a tendency to crack. You got to be careful with it. You can burn it. What I did find that I do like, hang on a second, guys, I gotta take the sweatshirt off, is green paper micarta. And I think that there's gonna be handles. I like micarta, period, but that green paper micarta that I did on a set of Hornet scales, I think was the best looking handle so far. Scott McLaughlin, do I prefer fixed or folder? I think that I would have to say that's not a real easy question to answer. I like a good fixed blade for specific purposes, but 99% of the time, I'm not going to be in a situation where I need a fixed blade anymore. I mean, when I was active duty, I would, but a good, robust folder is probably where I'm going to go. I have fixed blades that I just won't get rid of, but do I need a fixed blade anymore is the question that I would have to think to myself. Tyler Blake, what's my all-time favorite knife? My all-time favorite knife. I don't... It's got to be... I honestly have to say, I hate to say it, it's probably the Sebenza. My all-time favorite knife has probably got to be the Sebenza, the Chris Reeve Sebenza, because while it's kind of plain Jane, it's elegant and it's simple and it's easy to use. It's built in a way that the edge stands up because it's hollow ground, so that you can continue to sharpen back, so that you don't, have to thin the blade. It's a decent blade. I mean, it's a fucking awesome blade design. And it's comfortable. So I'd have to say all-time favorite knife, Chris Reeve Sebenza. That's just where I'm gonna have to go with it. I was thinking this, but there's things that I can't. There's things I can't carry this for. There's things this won't do. I haven't found anything that I can't really do with this. While it has its issues, that's probably it. David LaRue, do I play any instruments? No. Didn't have time for that on a farm. I can play a fucking fence post with a fucking hammer, though. Is there any knife you refuse to work on? Refuse to work on for sharpening? Not really. I mean, there's some that I'll charge you extra. As far as work on, I think I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there that I will not disassemble these anymore, because it's hard on them. They're not meant to be taken apart. They're like I know that they've got screws and removable hardware and stuff like that, but the fact is that this knife doesn't need to be taken apart. I had somebody, now there's people that want things done on them. I probably could do it, but something like this, it just needs rinsed off, maybe a toothpick, blow it out real good, and you got, you know. So I think that the Spyderco's taking them apart, I'm not going to do anymore. And there's some other knives that just, not that I wouldn't do it, but there's some that are just really hard to take apart, and that makes them, that puts them kind of outside of that realm of what you guys would be willing to pay. Best new maker that's still flying under the radar for most folks. You know, this is from, so that last question was from Kristen Dungy, and this is from Kevin Bradman. Best new maker that's still flying under the radar for most folks. As far as fixed blades, I saw these guys up at the California Custom Show. Strickland knives. They make buoys and things like that. I would say that they're fucking awesome. They are. It's in my video. They're gorgeous, and I've had a couple of them come in for sharpening. Ben Marshall, what was the knife? What was the knife that got you into collecting or carrying knives? Kind of already went into that. It wasn't so much a knife. It was my father. I'm getting text messages from George Shaw, one of my subscribers. Anthony Zaletta, same question. What was the knife that started your knife addiction? Like I said, it wasn't a knife. It was my father. What's the hardest part of making a knife? Keeping everything flat and not... I have, the biggest problem I have is getting my plunge line straight. And I mean, I've seen a knife that Mike Gavick made, and I didn't feel so bad after that. That was the 7th folder he had made. It was the number 7 that's up at Elliot's shop, and his plunge line was a little off. I'm like, hey, I guess it's not that bad. Is there a specific knife that got you into knives? If so, what? That's from Dylan White. So that last one was, what's the hardest part of making a knife? That was Pizza X Bandit. Is there a specific knife that got you into knives? We talked about that. It was more my father. So Jake H. So I'm looking at spending $100 on an EDC, thinking 3.5-inch blade, looking at a wee budget line, 703. What's your thoughts on their D2? Should I look elsewhere to spend my hard-earned cash? To tell you the truth, the D2 that I've had, I did one for Dwayne. As a matter of fact, I think it's that same knife. It's the Tonto. But at any rate, I sharpened it for Dwayne Smotherman, and it came out fucking nice. D2's a good go-to steel. I like D2. I've got that knife in D2. I've never really owned too many because there weren't a lot of knives that I wanted that were in D2, but now I have that Rat one. So I would say yes, that it's worth it. But if you can find something else you want out there around that same price point. Timberwolf 22, where do I get my strops from, or the leather if you make them? So the leather strop block I have out there that I'm going to have to replace the leather was an old belt. The other ones that I have are a piece of pine wood with a strip of balsa wood on top. Those I used to make, but I no longer do because for just the fact that I can get them and not have, they're like 15, 20 bucks each. I can get them online. You just go and you look up balsa wood strop. I'm going to have to order one here before too long. My 1 micron is starting to come apart. But but I just order them online from various places, and then I load those with. Right now, I'm using the 10 karat Handmade America emulsion spray. They use them on the. It's the same spray that they use on the Wicked Edge strops, and it works. It works really well. If you could only carry one knife for the rest of your life, what it would be? This is Mr. Pink. Already answered it. If I could only carry one knife for the rest of my life, it would have to be that little silver one that my father gave me. Actually, you know what? If I could only carry it, I could still keep them. I just wasn't allowed to carry anything else. Probably this. And a folder. And a fixed blade, we'd be looking at a Mora Knives Companion. So, Mr. Pink, there's your answer. You asked the same question 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And 3 times showed up in the held likely as spam. So, I don't know what. Richard Swihart. Are there steels that should not be sharpened or polished to a mirrored edge? You can strop it to a mirrored edge, but there are some that VG10 actually does not so much like taking a super mirrored edge or going up too high in grit is what I should say. D2 is another one I leave at a lower grit. S35VN seems to do so much better at the 2,000 grit area, 3,000 grit. But the thing is, all those steels then in turn, when you throw them on a strop, polish up but maintain that toothiness. It's something about the steel that it just polishes up better at a lower grit. not VG10, S35VN, if you go beyond, depending on heat treat, Wheeze, I've taken up to 8,000 and it looks pretty good. But if you start going too high in grit, it gets cloudy looking for some reason, and it just does not want to, it just doesn't look right. Ante Rada. What was the longest time you have worked on a knife? There's been a couple of them that I just talked to the customer. I was like, hey, this knife is bad. I need to be able to work on it when I have downtime. And so those knives got done over a period of a few days. One was a great big kukri, and the other was a Leupold. That's what I was saying, the bluefin. If you could only keep one pocket knife for your collection, what would the rest of the knife? Well, you guys are all asking the same questions. That little silver one, it was my father's. How did I get into sharpening? I grew up on a farm. That's Charles. So that was DS Nugget 91. Asked if I could only keep one pocket knife for my collection for the rest of my life, what would it be and why? Because it has such an emotional attachment, because it was a gift from my father. How did I get into sharpening? Already discussed that. I grew up on a farm. You had to have a sharp knife. I started sharpening, and then I realized I was good at it, and I started doing it for other people, and now I've started making money at it. Favorite knife under $50? That's a good question. Under 50? It would be a toss-up between these two. My Tough Light Mini and the Ontario Rat 1. I have to say let's go to this one, because this one is a little heavy and it's a little bit big, and it can be kind of over the top if you're around in certain scenarios with certain people. So I'd have to go with this. My favorite knife under 50 is the Tough Light by Cold Steel. So that was Andrew Greco. So Wombat Boy, what is your preferred blade shape? Tonto, clip point, dagger, drop point, sheep's foot, Warney, spade, etc. I don't like, unless you're talking about a traditional Tonto, like a Japanese style Tonto, not the Americanized Tonto, I'd say that everything else you mentioned except for Tonto and dagger, I really don't like either of those. All the other ones, it's pretty much a tie, because they all have a purpose. They all work pretty well. Would a pocket knife clip, this is David K, would a pocket knife clip be difficult to take away from the feel, or or usability too much. Came across a company that seems out of business. Timber Goof had a Kiradashi with a pocket clip. You know, I don't know. It just depends on the person. I've got knives that I took the pocket clip off of. This knife is set up for left-hand carry. So the pocket clip on this winds up being way more comfortable left-handed than it is right. Like I hold it right-handed, it's much more comfortable. So, I mean, it just depends on personal preference when you're talking about pocket clips. Pocket clips are always the worst part of any knife. Some companies have found a way to do them really well, and some companies have not. The problem is that a lot of the companies that have not are not trying, and they're just buying standard off-the-market pocket clips. The guys at Ferrum Forge have done a really good job of pretty much dialing in the pocket clip for their knives. It really, they wind up being pretty awesome, low profile. There's no hot spots on that. So, just depends on what you're looking for. But pocket clips are always going to be the worst. Let's see here. David K., you asked 2 questions, but I'm only entering you once in this. And I know that I only did that once because I saw that you were already on here. So, not sure the process. Would CRKT a big mass market neck knife or a full-size knife? This would bring more attention to the customer knives and your business. The steel wouldn't be the quality level, but they seem to be a company who's willing to produce new designs. I've thought about that, David, but the thing is, I don't want to compromise the quality of my knives. You know what I mean? See James Cornwall. Every time I own a knife, every knife I own has drawn blood after I sharpen it. That's a sign of good sharpening skills, or I'm just a clumsy fucker. I'm in the UK. If I win, just give the knife to poster 3 down for me or send me something else. So James, I'm going to take you off the list. Because I don't have anything else that I could feasibly send you to England. I don't know. The only reason I don't draw blood is my hands are calloused to the point now that when I do cut myself, usually it doesn't bleed or I don't feel it. Chris Sanders asks, has there been any knife making company in your opinion that has gotten better and better the longer they've been in business? There's a couple, Chris. There's a couple. But predominantly, they get worse. They usually do because they start... Once a company gets big, they start looking at profit margins versus actual product, and they cut corners because the company's growing, they have more expenses, they've got to cut corners somewhere. Prices of knives not going up. They might be making more and selling more, but it's that profit. So... Ferrum Forge has gotten better. They've just gotten better at what they're doing. Sharp by Design, Brian Nadeau, has gotten better over time. WE knives. Every time you see a new run of WE knives, they seem like they've gotten better. Same with Riyadh. Those are companies that I think are stepping up their game as opposed to just stagnating and staying the same or cutting corners and stuff like that. Matt Fish, hey Mike, what's your favorite way to sharpen a convex ground knife like a Bravo 1? I discussed that earlier. I just bring off a little bit of material at the front. I do a wide bevel and I polish off all the shoulders and I just basically bring that front edge back, and I try not to take off too much material unless it's really bad and the whole blade needs thinned. That's a completely different story and scenario. When designing a knife, aside from the blade length, what's the important factor to you and how do you incorporate it? The handle has to feel right, but it also has to feel right to more than just me. I have big hands. So when I come up with a handle, I have several friends that have different size hands. Matt has got smaller hands. Nico's got really small hands. If it's comfortable to all three of us, to me and those guys, then it's probably a good all-around handle. If it's not, then I ask him, where's it feel hot? And then where does it feel like it doesn't fit, or where does it need to have thinned out and things like that. And so, but I haven't designed a new knife in a while, so. So that was Steve Milk. Live Prepared 24. Do you think knives like electronics and other technologies will continue to evolve, or are we a pinnacle of knife capabilities, blade shapes, etc.? No, there's always something new. There are people that are. The fact is, though, that some people take stuff and bring it over the top too much. There's some locking mechanisms that are out there. Elliot was showing me one. It's a clockwork system that there's a mainspring and gears, and the blade opens real slowly under tension of a spring and a clockwork series of a gear chain. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's going to continue to evolve, but is it going to evolve the right way? So, Eldridge Young, what's the most pain in the ass steel you have ever sharpened? It's not going to be, you know what? Usually I don't have problems with the hard tool steels and things like that. The hard steels, like everybody's like, oh, it's got to be something that's really hard and wear resistant. No, those you can get a really precise edge on because you have to take your time because there's no other way to do it. Worst steels I've ever sharpened have always been crappy, cheap. Like fucking somebody will send me a $20, $30 knife and I'm like, it's gonna cost you more than the knife is worth for me to sharpen it because I have to chase that apex because it's soft and you can't use any pressure. So, yeah, I would have to say it's your cheaper, questionable heat treat on steels that give me the hardest time. What do I think about Guardian tactical knives? Well, let me look. I really, tactical. I'm not seeing it. So Guardian Tactical Knives. Guardian Tactical USA. Well, we're going to take a look. Let me see if I've even seen any of them. I have never seen any of these. The Guardian Tactical. I have never seen one of these. The Conics. So I don't know. I couldn't really give you an opinion. Interesting looking designs. I mean, not that. I like the Conics shape. That looks cool. But other than that, couldn't give you it. I know why I like it. I know why. Because it reminds me of this. Matter of fact, they're really, really, really close. I'm surprised they didn't get a call from Anthony Marfione. I don't know. Don't know what to tell you. Any tips for those who came to folders and sharpening a bit later in life, but found that once we started, we were very, very passionate. Anyway, learning and pursuing machine work, pro honing for a living. It's hard. It's hard. It just depends on the week. This week's been really good. I'm not seeing a lot of stuff stacking up for next week. I haven't gotten an email really about much anything. So you better hedge your bets well and have options available. That's why I drive Lyft. As a matter of fact, probably gonna drive Lyft later this week because if I'm not having stuff coming in, I had to make money somewhere. I still have to make money. So machine work, I don't know. That's something you have to think about real hard. So that was D fails the most. Michael Leader, do I have a favorite tactical knife? Yeah, you just saw it. So I don't consider any of the other knives here, with the exception of, I guess this would be considered a tactical or tactical knife. But this one is an actual, this knife would be, it'd be formidable in a tactical hand-to-hand situation if needed. It's a brutal fucking folding hatchet, and it's designed comfortably to where it can be used in a lot of some of those situations. So that was Michael Leader. Jerry S. What's your favorite blade shape? Already discussed that. Everything except Tonto and Dagger pretty much fits into the same category for me. Ooh, pizzas or heat. This is CM42ME Jones. We're on question number 67. We got 30 left. Pizza or tacos? Taco pizza? Kind of a cop-out, but I like both, so I really couldn't pick one. If you only pick one steel, what would be your all-around perfect steel for EDC? It would be a tie. I think it'd be a tie between... LMAX with a really good heat treat and 20CV, which I'm not gonna lie to you, this LMAX that Elliot Williamson did on this is it's up there with 20CV. It really is. This knife actually holds an edge incredibly well. Oh. What budget brand has your favorite designs? If you could pick what model from a said company, would you remake it with better materials? Cold Steel obviously has. Could I pick one and remake it? Oh yes, I could. Just because it's cool. Cold Steel made a knife. No, that's not the one I want. I have two of these. This isn't the one. It would be this one. Cold Steel made this knife. It is called the Triple Action Folder. It is an awesome way to carry a double, but as you can hear, it's not anything to do with the steel. This is VG1 steel. This thing is still ridiculous sharp. But the problem was the aluminum handles they made this out of. You lost detent. It just wants to come open in your pocket. You can't keep anything tight. Your pocket clip moves. And when it's open, because basically you're relying on aluminum, aircraft aluminum, to hold a steel blade, it wears. The cool thing about it was that you could always really rapid deployment. So that's what I would remake. It would be their triple action with like titanium scales, titanium handles like that. It'd be cool. It'd be expensive, but... Josh Adams, I was wondering if you're doing the knife thing full time now. I try to catch your live feeds, but maybe I missed. I am pretty much the last month or two. It's been full time. I wish I had more stuff coming in, but you know, it's working that direction. So not to throw a plug in, but just so that you guys know, don't hesitate to send me stuff. Don't think that I was like, oh, he's pretty busy. I'm never too busy to do you guys' knives. Matter of fact, I get knives in. There's a lot of times that they're done a day or two later. I do have I've got to get shipping figured out because I've got stuff in there that needs to go. If you only had to pick one stone for the rest of your life, what would it be? It would have to be something that is like, I'd have to say it'd have to be something that's like a medium grit natural stone, like an Arkansas. Like an Arkansas, like a soft, like a medium hard Arkansas where it's still taking off material. You can still take off some rolled edges, but you're still getting a pretty fine edge. That's probably about the extent of it. Bob Clapper asked another question. Where are you at here? Sleepy Insomnia. Okay. I didn't put Bob back on there. Bubba Peppers. Can you give us an idea of what type of design you're going to make next? You guys have already seen it. It's that one that's going to be the Scorpion. That little one that I made for my daughter. I just have got to get... I got to get figured out and make a couple of them. Andy Carr. I'm glad I got good channels like this for stuff. Not really a question, but you're in the running. Bryce Waltz. What's your favorite blade steel? I already discussed that. 20CV or LMAX. Outside of that, like VG10. I'm trying to look here and see, make sure I'm not rereading. A-Ray. What's it like to be able to work out of the Farron Forge shop? I know it's probably not a big deal to you, but it just seems it would be amazing to work next to some of those brilliant knife makers on the scene right now. It is cool. It's awesome, actually, to be able to even just go up there, and even though I'm not working, just to watch what they do. Elliot taught me how to replace a stop pin, put an oversized stop pin in my knife. He's like, you're going to do it. So I had a little bit of blade play. So we put an oversized stop pin, and I had to do the fit up to make it fit in on the close side and bring it up so that the tip, because the tip was sticking up because it's bigger. So you have to take some metal out. How did I get in knives? It's from Bruce Johnson. It was for my father. I already discussed that. Lawrence Shuchak. I can't even pronounce it. S-U-C-H-A-K. Shuchak? Suchak? I can't pronounce it. I don't want to screw it up. How do I go about getting one of your neck knives? I have got blanks for neck knives. I, as a matter of fact, have 3 of them that are ready to be ground and just have not been spoken for. So just asking me for one is probably your best bet. Bonzer Wolf, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a convex edge? And then there's a couple of... Jep Outdoors said he's writing a book about that. Okay, so the advantages and disadvantages of a convex edge. A convex edge comes out as something that supports the edge really well, and it allows you to have a thin edge up front with more material to support it. And a lot of times, instead of it has a tendency of, because it has that shape like an apple seed or an axe granite, it pushes material, instead of being just a straight angle where material just goes along it, it kind of wedges out and it pushes the material out away, so you're able to get a smoother, deeper cut with less friction. The downside to it is it's hard for some people to resharpen. Once I sharpen a knife, and I've had people like, yeah, I don't know what you did. I fucking put this thing on a Spyderco Sharp Maker, and it's not touching. It's just hitting mid. Well, I was like, I kind of warned you about that when you sent me the knife, that it's not a straight angle. It's not something that you can then put on a fixtured system and expect just to touch it up. The thing about a convex is they strop very well. So, you know, there's pros and cons. There's more to it than that, but... James Duckworth, I always miss the live feeds. Why is that, Mike? I don't know, James. Maybe you're just not quick enough. Maybe that's just it. Bumble Ostrich. Did I put that one down? Yes, I did. We're on number 80. In your opinion, what's the best sharpening system for under $100? There are none. Under $100, if you're not spending at least $100 and something, you're getting garbage stones, and it's not going to last. Landskis are an okay. There's sometimes, I mean, they're below, and so are Smiths, but I'm talking if you want a good quality system, you need to start looking into not a work sharp. You need to start looking into, I would say, for my personal preference, having seen them a few times now, KME. I like the KME. Bird has one. They come out awesome on his channel. The thing about any sharpening system is that just because you have a fixtured system does not mean... I almost lost where I was going with that for a second. This is migraine meds. I think I'm gonna take a nap after this. With any fixtured system, there's still a learning curve. You're not going to just jump right into it and everything's going to be perfect. You're going to find problems with what you did real quick. So throwing in an under $100 sharpening system, you're going to find much more problems, because the cheaper you go, you get what you pay for, basically. A cheaper system, you're not going to be able to maintain the angles you want. You're not going to be able to hold it the way, you know, everything about it's going to be bad. And the big thing that I've seen about the under $100 systems, the stones are just garbage. The Edge Pro stones are, I'm not going to lie to you, they're really, really awesome. And I'm surprised that they come that... something's on there. I don't know what it was. So yeah, it's just not. So Andrew, that was Bumble Ostrich. Andrew Thompson, I would like to know how Damasteel is to sharpen. I'm considering getting a Reat or Skillcraft Bodega, and I love Damasteel. It gets stupid. Some of the sharpest knives that have ever left my house have been in RWL 34, Damasteel, SM100. I have to say that those knife steels get really, really, really sharp. So this is from Moto Easy E. What's my favorite thing about creating a knife? Being able to take an unyielding material, I mean, and bend it to my will, to make it do something it doesn't want to do. It doesn't want to be heat treated. It wants to try and crack, and it wants to warp, but you're going to make it straight. And it doesn't want to be tempered. It wants to oxidize, but you're going to sand that off, blast it off. And it doesn't want to be ground. It fights the abrasives, and you're making it do things that it does not want to do. You're making it do what you want it to do. That's what's cool. Dwayne. Hey, Dwayne. If a trapper from the 1800s had a chance to swap our technology of today with steels and stones to sharpen them, or keep what they're used to, or we could say comfortable with, would they switch and stay with what they know? Just food for thought. I just got a text from Elliot. He's going to watch Dog Force. You know, I don't know. Because a lot of these knives that we have, that we carry today, are not the same knives that a trapper from the 1800s needs. That small fixed blade, the Scorpion that I'm making, is something that kind of along those lines, but I honestly don't think they would, because the thing is, we've moved away from the knives that were purpose built for that in the past, and there's no way that this knife would be something that a trapper in the 1800s would be able to use. It's not. It's not the right shape, it's not the right size, it's too heavy, it's stuff that you carry. So, I don't know about that, guys. Phone rang. I was expecting that as my wife. I have to go pick my daughter up. We might not be able to finish this all in one sitting here. I got 20 some odd minutes before I can pick my daughter up. So yeah, Dwayne, I don't know what that would wind up looking like to somebody from the 1800s. Ben. So hi, dude. Our young friend Ben. Have you ever messed up a customer's knife without telling them? Have you ever messed up a customer's knife in general? No. For the first part, no, I have never messed up a customer's knife without telling them. Have I ever messed up a customer's knife in general? A paying customer? No. I screwed up a bunch of knives. I screwed up a bunch of my own stuff. But that's what I was trying to avoid before I was able to start this business. I want to make sure I was comfortable with people paying me. But I did drop a guy's knife one time. I talked about it in a live feed once before. I dropped it. It was, I don't have one that we equate. So basically it was a ZT 0300, and it had the flipper tab, but it had their speed safe system, and it landed, and it snapped open, and it broke about that much off the tip of the blade, and I had to replace the guy's knife. And yes, I told him about it immediately. Like, I hadn't even walked in the house yet. It fell out of a backpack on the concrete in the yard, or in the garage. I mean, Darren L. Hey, Mike, do you think it's possible to do a collaboration with you and Farron Forge? That would be great. No, I don't think it's possible. They're probably not doing any more collaborations, and I'm not well known enough for them to even think about it. We're friends. You don't go into business with friends, really. It's a bad idea. Milos Dorakowski. I love your videos. How high a grit do you usually go for a utility beater type knife? That falls into my baseline price of 25, which gets you all the way up to 80,000 or 8,000 grit. 80,000, Jesus, I'm an idiot. 8,000 grit, and 8,000 grit is about all the higher I would want to go for just a utility user beater knife. But probably 3,000 if it's like a really cheap knife, depending. Jeremy Russell, I think this is the first time I've seen you with a flashlight. What's included in your everyday carry? I usually have a pocket knife in my pocket. Now Nico gave me that little flashlight. It does come in pretty handy. It's usually in my pocket, and I carry that coin, that memento mori, which basically is to remind myself of what's going on and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So Jared Tyra asked a second question, not for giveaway entry, and I did catch that. I was wondering if under 18 can enter. If it's cool, just keep me out. No, yes, Jared, you can enter. Aaron Atherton, two-parter here, kind of tacked on a question below. First, what are some steels that perform similarly to M4? It's my favorite steel, and I have an opportunity extensively. Second, why are folders with M4 in such short supply when compared to others? Thanks. Enjoy your work. M4 is a bear to sharpen and work with. It comes out pretty awesome. A lot of people switch to 20 CV because it's pretty much the best. You're looking at the best thing going is 20 CV, 204P, M390. Some of M4 has a tendency to rust a little bit, if I remember. I know that V3 and V4 did. But why are they in short? Because the newest thing's always what sells. And I'm not gonna lie to you, people will go with what's hot. Oh, LMAX was so cool. Most people were making knives in LMAX at one point. Now they're making them in 20 CV, M390, 204P. The Rex 121, whatever the hot ticket is, that's what knife makers are going to make their knives with. And M4 just is not there anymore. S90V used to be really good. S110V, it just depends. R-Swig, appreciate the giveaway chance, but if I win, you can choose another person. I'm already blessed more than I deserve. Clearly, you have people who care about you. You have people you have never met from Patreon members giving you money, people sending you knives to keep you buying steel and much more. Yeah, I have people buy me steel. This is great. I want to know when someone did something for you so profound that it changed the fiber and left a profound effect on you. Well, as much as I'd like to say it was Jeremy Morris buying me the steel I needed and then up and paying for the belts and things like that, my father, I went home. It's been coming up on 2 years ago now because my father got diagnosed with cancer, and we went home and we saw my father, and my father, being as sick as he was, took one look at me and said, "Boy, you look unhappy." And the fact that he cared beyond the point of him being sick, and I said, here's the thing. Why are you worried about me? You're the one that's sick. And he goes, "Boy, I'm fucking dying. What else I got to worry about?" And told me that I needed to find a way to be happy, and this is where I'm going. That's what this channel is. That's what this business is. I'm so much happier. As much I would like to say that it's you guys that did it, it's not. It's my father. The most profound thing that ever happened was my father dying, showing concern about me and not caring about himself. And that's what it was. And that's what made a profound change in my life. I quit a $75,000 a year job to do this. I've made probably about $10,000 this year. What's your least favorite? This is I. Small, lowercase I with a dot. What is your least favorite brand for any reason? We already touched on this. It's freaking Emerson. And watch my video. Just go find my Emerson video. I'm not even getting into that. Would you recommend for a portable sharpener? I think it goes without saying I don't want a fixed angle one. So this is Jared's first question. Portable sharpener. Get a couple. If you don't want a fixed one, then you get a couple of small stones that you can put in a pocket slip inside a leather slip, and you carry those. Because anything else you're going to have is going to be a pull through, and they're garbage. Anything that would be like portable pocket sharpener, yeah. Toby Gensler. I'm using sharpening. I got an Edge Pro. My question is, what's the best way to get a super sharp, pointy tip? Don't use an Edge Pro. You're going to have problems with that because no matter what you do, you can't see the tip. And unless you can find a way to flip that thing over so you can see where your stone is on the tip. That's why I always do blade above you're not gonna be able to do it. You're gonna round edge. You're gonna round tips. You really are. Jen Do Right? Jen Do Right. Really like the M4 on my Spyderco. Gail Bradley, what you remember? We just told you. I'm not going to go back into that. Steels are, it just depends on what you got going on. Nathan Truman, I heard you mention a pistol by your bedside. I have a Glock 19 Gen 3 with a light as my bedside. What do you have? I don't want a light. I don't want them to see me coming. The only light they should hear, the only light they should see is a muzzle flash. And we are at the last question. Ryan Moore asked, you said you were going to do some, you said you were doing some anodizing. What are your processes to titanium or aluminum? Only titanium. And do you think that Benchmade and Spyderco are really good enough to justify their prices? Spyderco, yes and no. Benchmade, absolutely not. And then there were a couple of replies on this. Phil D told him that I do titanium anodizing. Paul Robinson is in Australia. He's not entered. And then I responded back to someone. So there we go, guys. That is all of the questions. Question and answer. I'm going to edit this, put it together. I'm going to pull up a random number generator. We will do this live. So you're going to see the results before you see the question and answer. I'm sorry, it's just going to take me a while to get it edited and uploaded. It's going to take longer. I want to get this done so I can figure out who the winner is. So right after I finish this, I am going to do the announcement. The video will post after. All right. You guys take it easy, and I will see you next time. We're at like an hour, and it's got to be like an hour and a half video. I apologize, guys. But stick around and watch it. It was fun.